So here we have my metric chart, and I'm going to start with an easy example from that. I have a specific way of converting units that I really like. You do not have to do it, but I find it very, very helpful. So in this case, I'm going to start with a really simple example. Suppose I have 5 kilometers. 5 kilometers. Well, I want to put that into just plain meters. We'll go with that for now, and then we'll do some more complicated ones in a few minutes. I know that 1 kilometer, I might know this without looking at the chart, but I can look at it here. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. And that means that I can write a fraction like this. I can write 1 kilometer on the top and 1,000 meters on the bottom. Or I can switch it and write 1,000 meters on the top, the numerator, and 1 kilometer on the bottom. And those are both equal to 1. Because 1,000 meters and 1 kilometer are equal. So when I divide one by the other, I get 1. But it allows me to multiply by that factor without actually changing the value of the result. And so I can do that and then cross out the unit I don't want anymore. Let me show you what I mean. 5 kilometers times, in this case, I would like to cross out kilometers and be left with meters. So I'm going to multiply by 1,000 meters over 1 kilometer. And now I can cancel out kilometers from the top and the bottom and be left with 5 times 1,000 meters, or 5,000 meters. Same thing again, I'll do a smaller unit this time. Suppose I wanted 23 millimeters into meters. Well, I'm going to find millimeters here, and it's 0.001 or 10 to the minus 3 meters. So that means, looking at it the other way, I'll write, I can have 1 millimeter equals 0.001 meters. Or, if you want to work with whole numbers, multiply everything by 1,000 and have 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. And that means I could write 1,000 millimeters over 1 meter, or 1 meter over 1,000 millimeters, and those are both equal to 1. Meaning I can multiply by that without changing the actual value. So let me start with 23 millimeters. Now, which of these guys do I want? Well, I could multiply by either of those without changing my value because both of those are equal to 1. But if I multiply by this one, it will give me millimeters on the bottom in the denominator where I can cancel them out. 1 meter over 1,000 millimeters. Cross out millimeters. And I'm left with 23 over 1,000 meters. You might also have done this with scientific notation. Let me do the same example with scientific notation. Notice up here we circled this 10 to the minus 3. So 1 millimeter equals 10 to the minus 3 meters. So do the same thing, but 23 millimeters times, I want millimeters on the bottom, so I can cancel these. So that means I'll have 10 to the negative 3 meters on top. And so this will be 23 times 10 to the negative 3 meters. And we also know from our time with scientific notation that I would probably want to rewrite this as 2.3 times 10 to the negative 2 meters. So I've written it this way. I've written it this way. And another way to write the same thing would just be 0.023 meters, right? That's the same thing as 10 to the minus 2, because my 2.3 decimal place comes over 1, 2. All right, so this is the first and second examples of how I like to do conversions between units. Let's do a slightly more complex one where I'm going to stick with the metric system for now, and then I'm going to add one on the end where I do something just a tiny bit more so you can see how helpful this method can be. So let me go from gigameters up here. I know that's not one that we typically use, but we could do that, to decimeters here. So gigameters is 10 to the 9th, and decimeters is 10 to the minus 1. So I'm going to say that I have 4.6 gigameters, and I want to put that into decimeters. I'm going to go through meters first, just because I know how each of these relates to meters. So 4.6 gigameters times, well, I want to be able to cross out gigameters. So I'm going to have 1 gigameter on the bottom. And on the top, I will have to have the equivalent, which is 1 billion meters, or 1 times 10 to the 9th meters. So now I've crossed this out, and now I've got it in meters. Well, now I need to get it from meters to decimeters, and I would like meters on the bottom, so I can cross that out. Well, 1 meter is 10 decimeters. So now I can multiply out 4.6 times 10 to the 9th times 1 more 10 decimeters. So that's 4.6 times 10 to the 10th decimeters. All right, I said I would do a slightly more complex example, and I'm going to do that by giving you something that has a rate rather than just a unit of length. So we often measure speed or rates in something like kilometers per hour. So suppose I have 60 kilometers per hour, but I would like to know what that is in another very common unit that's used in a lot of textbooks, which is meters per second. And this is actually kind of an interesting question. If you're traveling at 60 kilometers an hour, how fast are things going past you? How many meters of sidewalk or road or whatever do you pass by in 1 second? I think that's actually a little interesting. So I'm going to use a very similar, well, I'm going to use the exact same method, but I'm going to have 60. I'm going to start with 60 kilometers per hour. And really, the only thing for doing this method is to make sure that I keep my units with the quantities so I can cancel them. I need to get from kilometers to meters. So this needs to go to meters, and this needs to go to seconds. Well, 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So I can switch that. I want to make sure that I have kilometers in the denominator of my fraction so I can cancel it. And now my unit is that I have right now is meters per hour, which is not a very standard unit. I mean, it still works. But I would like to get that from hours to seconds. Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes, as you no doubt know. So I could multiply this by, I want hour on the top so that I can cancel it with the hour on the bottom in the denominator there. Well, so 1 hour over 60 minutes. Okay, I'm getting closer because now this is in meters per minute. Well, also 1 minute is 60 seconds. So now if I multiply just one more time by 1 minute over 60 seconds, now I can cross out minutes, and I'm left with, didn't leave myself enough space here, I'm left with 60 times 1,000, and then that's in the numerator, and in the denominator I have 60 times 60. And the only units left are meters per second because I've crossed everything out. I can cross out one of those 60s and be left with 1,000 over 60 meters per second, which is the same thing as 100 over 6 meters per second, which I believe works out to 16.67, 16 and 2/3. Oops. 16.7, we'll say, meters per second. So this allows us to convert really any unit we want as long as we keep multiplying by fractions that are equivalent to 1. This method of converting units has a special name. It's called the factor label method. All right, that is the end of what I have for chapter 23. I will post these videos, and I think I've already posted questions and solutions for chapter 23. I will post an assignment for chapter 23 that I believe is due March 30th, and I will post it most likely tomorrow. Thank you.